Hey everyone, I'm Nick, and welcome to another episode of User Requested Videos. So in this episode of the series, I'm going to talk a little bit about the software and the tools that I use on kind of a day-to-day basis. So the first thing, of course, is the shell. So instead of using Bash, I use this alternative called ZSH, and ZSH has a number of nice properties. And I'll go ahead and link this install guide for Ubuntu 18.04 below the video. So what are some of the nice things that ZSH has? Right, so it has this it has this command checking. So if I do ls, that's of course going to be correct, so it's highlighted in green. LLS doesn't exist, so it gets highlighted in red. And so you can see command not found LLS. But there's a lot of other nice things as well. So it also has some spell checking. So if I partially type in the right thing, let's say I want to go to a particular directory and maybe I forget like an A. Well, you see it changed, I tried to change to SCA 2020 instead of ISCA 2020. If I just press tab, you see it auto corrects it. There's also this automatic reverse searching that's really nice. So generally inside of Bash, if you want to reverse search, you would do Control R, and you would do something like G++. If you're trying to find maybe a compilation command, and you could press Control R multiple times to move back multiple commands. Nice thing with ZSH is I can just do something like G++, and then I can just press the up arrow key, and it automatically does that reverse search for me. So that's just a number of the, or some of the very nice things there. Other than that, there's also the fact that it has integration with Git, or this setup does, so you can automatically tell what branch you're on. If I go ahead and say make a file like temp.cpp, let's just say hi in it and quit, you see it, it tracks changes, and if I add them, it tells you if you have things added, things committed, etc. So it's a very nice thing to work with. Okay, so that's a little bit about the shell, but what about Vim itself? So I use Vim for a lot of things, and I don't have really that much of I didn't hand write my entire Vim configuration. I just use this one, this Amix vimrc file, right? The ultimate Vim configuration. It has a whole bunch of very nice plugins that I like using, and it has a very simple install directions. It's really just 2 lines. So I do have a slight change to it, which is I added another plugin, which is for clang format. So if you're unfamiliar with what clang format is, let's go ahead and I'll make a file called temp.cpp, and I'll say something like let's make a main function, but let's format it really poorly. Let's do something like int a is equal to 5. We could even have int a is equal to 5 or something like this, right? So this looks pretty bad. And do I have to go back and do tabs and backspaces and enters to fix all of this? Well, no, I can just use clang format. So clang format will automatically set it to a particular style, right? So this is clang format from the clang LVM site. It tells you a bit about the what clang format is and does. There's a number of pre-built styles that you can follow. So Chromium, LVM, and say Google C++ style that you can automatically set. I just use Google C++ style, and I even have a little tutorial in a repository here for getting it set up with Vim, Eclipse, and VS Code. So any one of those, if you're interested in them. So it's just in here, and even for setting it up with Vim. And so the plugin for Vim is this Vim clang format. It's pretty easy to set up. All you need to do with this Amix Vim configuration is we go ahead and go to CD, and we go to this .vim runtime. So this is what you end up downloading if you use this Vim configuration. If you go in here and I went to sources non-forked, and all I had to do was do git clone on this Vim clang format into this directory, and then it just works. So here we can see Vim clang format. So all I did was clone it into this directory, and then it automatically worked in my Vim setup. So if I go into like my .vimrc, I have a couple small changes in here, mainly just you can set specific options with this clang format style. I can bind it to a particular key if I wanted to. So if I wanted to just bind it to F2, so I can just press F2 and it automatically runs clang format, you can do that as well. And there's more information here in this Vim clang format plugin setup. So other than just my Vim setup and my shell setup, another thing is some other command line tools I use So two of them that I use pretty frequently are ctags and valgrind. So valgrind is for debugging. I also use GDB, but valgrind I figure maybe fewer people have maybe heard about compared to GDB. So let's go to a simple example of where ctags is useful. And this is a pretty, from University of Washington, this is a pretty good tutorial to go through. So I'll link that in there. So I like using ctags because if I'm working in a large project from like the simulator that I helped develop called GPGPUSim, if I'm working in a large project like that, it can be kind of difficult to figure out, okay, well, where is something defined? Do you have to like grep for it? Because that can be pretty messy, and that's a pretty bad way to develop. So if I go to something like, let's open up a file. So let's open up something in the performance model. So something like maybe shader.cc that models a SMT core. So okay, so I'm inside of maybe some function in here. So here it's doing some cache line flush for each core. Now what if I want to figure out where mcore is, right? So if I use ctags, so here I'm just using control in the right bracket, it will go ahead and just take me to wherever that's defined, even if it's in a different file. So you see it took me to source kudasim ptxsim.h, and if I do control T, it takes me back to wherever I was, right? So this is a fast way to kind of jump around between files, between say, a use and a definition. So this is a really, it's a really nice tool to, kind of get a hold of and to get used to using, especially when you're working with much larger projects. So going back to here, so another thing that I mentioned was valgrind. So valgrind is great for debugging things, especially related to memory. So a quick example of this is if I do something like, let's make a test.cpp. We'll have an int main, and all we'll do is we'll say int pointer a. Pointer a is equal to new int. So we just create int that's dynamically allocated, and then let's go ahead and below that, let's just delete it right afterwards. So we'll do delete a, but let's say we maybe have a double delete here, right? So this is a bug, right? And it can be a pretty common bug depending on what you use for memory management. If you're doing a lot of manual memory management, things like forgetting to free or maybe doing double deletes, they can happen if you're not careful. If you're not following something like RAII and using containers that manage the lifetime of memory for you. So again, one of the nice things about this Vim setup is it can tell you, it uses an analyzer or this linter to basically give you some information ahead of time about bugs, right? So here you see attempt to free released memory, so automatically just inside of my text editor it's telling me that. But let's try to compile this. So it'll compile just fine. So we'll compile test.cpp, we'll create an executable called test, and then we can run test, right? And unsurprisingly, or maybe surprisingly to you, it seems to complete, right? But that's because there's protections built in whenever you try to do something bad. So the compiler can help try to protect you by putting in code to make sure that you're doing the double delete is not going to cause any problems. But we can also use valgrind on test. So we can run valgrind with test, and we can see, hey, look, it diagnoses an invalid free for us. So it says that, okay, we've got some operator delete here in main saying where it is. Then it says we have a delete before that, and then where it was alloced. So here we see, okay, well, inside of main, it went ahead and did an operator new, then we deleted whatever that piece of memory was, and then we tried to delete that same piece of memory again. And you see down here, the heap summary, it said we had 2 allocs and 3 frees, and we didn't have any leaks, right? If we forgot to do, say, a delete, so let's go ahead and go in and we try to, maybe we just completely forgot to delete, we get another warning here. 2 things, right? Unused variable A because we're not using it, and the other one is this potential leak of memory. So let's go ahead and recompile it, and then let's run valgrind again on the output, and you see we get another thing here. So we end up having a leak summary, so definitely lost 4 bytes in 1 block, right? So 2 allocs and 1 free. So you can see that it can give us some nice information even without going through all the command line options. It can give us some nice information about potential memory errors. So it's a very useful tool along with other things like GDB. So those are some of the basics of the tools that I use. So I'll have links to all of these in the description of the video. So if you have any other questions about tools that I may use, I've got Visual Studio Code off to the side here. So I also use IDEs as well. I just do a lot of my work inside of Vim, because if you use all these kind of nice plugins and configurations and tools, right, you get a lot of the benefit that you have in something like an IDE as well. So the distance or the functionality you get between the two, it kind of converges. But that's going to go ahead and do it for this video. Again, you can check out any of this stuff at github.com/coffeebeforearch. I'll have a write-up eventually of all of these different tools that I use, as well as some rationale behind it once I finish setting up my Google page, my GitHub page. So if you're unfamiliar, you can have your own little website through GitHub Pages, and it'll just be whatever your name is .github.io, and you get a free little kind of domain. But that's going to go ahead and do it for this video. As always, I'm Nick, and I hope you have a nice day.